to Musing with Tonya D podcast. Once again, I am your host, a practicing holistic shaman, medium, and otherworldly life coach and subtle energetic surgeon. My intention is to utilize the power of indigenous technologies, the ancient wisdom of our bones, our original divine blueprint to navigate through our soul's harmonic, the realm of the elementals, the elemental highway, into and through the imaginal realm, possibly reintroducing you to the magical being I believe resides within each and every one of us, unique and as individual as our thumbprint. Through these subtle realms and bodies, the energetic anatomy to raise our frequency to the prime directive, to our inner genius, our personal medicine. I do call myself a holistic Sha medium, which is a choreography of merging them all. My name is Tonya D, and welcome to my podcast, Medicine Room. I do go live on YouTube at Tonya D for a daily snippet. Each day, I share the element of the day coming from the 4 pillars of Chinese astrology or destiny. These 4 pillars are actually a gateway into the realm of your personal elemental highway, and you may be wondering or pondering why that's so very important. Well, once you understand or have an idea of the elementals, you can then utilize them for healing a variety of symptoms and conditions and balancing our personal elements with our gift and our purpose, our prime directive, whether it's our thoughts, our beliefs, our feelings, our spirit, our mental academy, energy, vitality, transformation, and so much more. It's all part of the cosmic soup. The spirit that resides within each element is also a part of our elemental structure or foundation, along with these subtle energies, bodies, and fields and cosmic insights, messages, and so much more, might I add. So going beyond being inspired and just loving the season of the witches, nature's transformation, the magic, the variety of guests that I've actually had and literally enjoyed during the season, this podcast season. That's why I do title the show The Musing with Tonya D, because it's about musing. So if there's anybody that you wish to hear from again that really got you excited about life and really your own magical essence that resides within each and every one of us, please comment and share and let me know. And of course, stay curious, questioning everything. That is also one of my mantras. This week's audio room guest artist is Nikki Starcat Shields. She has been an active dreamer, a Fey scholar of the mysteries, an avid bookwyrm throughout her life. She's also an author, a book midwife, also known as a writing coach, a leader of transformational writing retreats. She's also a licensed pagan priestess who has been doing daily spiritual practice for more than 25 years. Nikki has had 5+ nonfiction books published so far. She is currently writing a contemporary fantasy series. She lives in Maine and adores reading, cats, and spending time by the ocean. So with all of that, let's give a warm welcome to my audio medicine listeners to Nikki Starcat Shields. How are you doing today, Nikki?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to talk to you.
I'm excited to have you here. So let's just dive in. So let's talk about the active dreamer and the elementals.
All right. So basically, what I've discovered over a lifetime of exploring spirituality and creativity and the elements is that everyone's creative. We're all creative. And to me, our creativity and our spirituality emerge kind of from the same place. And what that means is that you can tap into that. Now, I've run into people once in a while who say, oh, I'm just not creative. And I say, wait a minute, stop. You might not be creative in a way that you think creativity, what it means, writing, painting, singing, that kind of thing. But how do you decorate your home? How do you raise your kids? Everything is an expression of your creativity that's innate within you. And many of us, because of the way we were raised or the school system or whatever, have boxed ourselves in and kind of shut down that creative spirit. But it's easy to unlock it. And some of the tools that we can use to unlock it are deep connection and the elements.
So when you say elements, are you talking about the physical elements or the elemental beings? I kind of like to play with both myself, the otherworldly beings like the Fae, or the beings like of the galaxy, the old earth beings.
All of that, really. What I'd like to do is, so have you heard of the author Starhawk? She wrote The Spiral Dance.
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
her books.
Yeah,
Actually, I
back in
have
the
all of
day.
them.
Back in the day. So she offered a really nice framework that I like to start people with. So she offered the triple self. We all have the triple self, three parts of us, and that's sort of like the psychological, ego, id, superego, but it's more magical. So we start off. We have a talking self, and that's the self that we're talking to each other with today here, and the listeners are listening. And you've got a running commentary in your brain that tells you, sometimes nice things, sometimes not so nice things, right? That's kind of the talking logical side of oneself. We also have a younger self, which some people like to call the right-brained self. And that's where, we can play. Younger self loves to, play around with color and senses. And this is why we have altars with candles and incense. And this is to really draw on younger self's love of the senses and that sort of thing. And then we have the deep self. And the deep self is that part of us that's connected with the non-physical, any other kind of realms, our soul, our oversoul. And that part of us, the deep self, doesn't communicate very well directly with talking self. They don't speak the same language, but we can use younger self as kind of a translator. If we get those three parts of us aligned, then we're able to tap into that wellspring of creativity that comes through deep self. And in deep self, when we're really connected and feeling plugged in, that's where we can get the messages from the Fae, or where we can, kind of bring in those non-physical helpers and guides and muses. So using the framework of the elements, if you look at the 5 elements, air, earth, fire, water, and spirit, there's room within each of those frameworks for connecting with your creativity. In the realm of air, we have a lot of ideas, right? There's a lot of creativity in the way of, you think about inspiration. Inspiration literally means breathing in. So that's like breathing in these ideas that come to us basically from deep self and from beyond. Within the realm of fire, fire is our passion. Fire are those things that we're really interested in doing. You might say, oh, I'm not creative, I don't want to write a book, but you might be really passionate about, I love to use home decor as an example because people really get excited about that. Like, I really want to make myself an office. This is what I did. It's purple, it has books everywhere. It's like, using your passion for certain things to nurture that creativity. In the realm of water, that's our dream self. That's the dreamer. Like we are living inside of a dream. We also have dreams at night that we can connect with. We also have daydreams. So this is fluid, mystical part of ourself is kind of represented by water. And to me, earth is about habits and physical, more of the physical realm. When you mentioned the physical elements, like this is where we do things to take care of ourselves that will enable us to connect with our creativity. Like we get good sleep, we eat things that nourish our bodies, we move our bodies as much as possible, we dance, we express ourselves that way, the physical realm. And it's also habits. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about like physical, like spiritual practice too. So that's the habits piece of things. And then spirit connects them all. Spirit is that which we are, that's not just our physical self, it's what's beyond that. And so it's our deep self connecting to, you can work with many different, non-physical beings, the ancestors, the muses, a goddess or a god that you're connected with, the fae, spirits of the land. There's many different ways to connect with spirit, and we can bring that, kind of brings everything together.
Absolutely. I find it actually it's fascinating, our minds get in the way of this deeper connection, at least the logical side, because there's
Yeah.
like fire of the water spirits, there's fire of the nature spirits. So there's so many different kinds of spirits that we can all connect to, even whether, I mean, an angelic being, a star being, it doesn't really matter. It's just when they show up, I think sometimes people, it kind of knocks you over because you're like, whoa, what's that?
Yeah, you start to analyze it, right? You start to like, okay, is this real, and what's it coming from, and what, it does block the channel, really.
So let's talk about your title, The Book Midwife. Where did that come into play?
So I had wanted to be a writer when I was a little girl, and over the course of going through public school and kind of had been dissuaded from, oh, you can't make a living doing that, but can you do something else? And had gone into broadcasting. And ultimately, though, my calling was really writing. So it came back together around my early 40s. I like, okay, I need to write a book. My muses kept on like tapping me on the shoulder. Come on, write a book. So I did. I had been writing essays, and my first book was actually a collection of those essays on pagan living. And so I collected that. And then I started writing other books. And as I did that, people in my life and my communities had, found out I was, oh, you published a book. Oh, you know about this. And so they came to me for some help. And so I had helped people with editing, with, encouragement, with reading it and giving them feedback different ways. And one particular woman this was in 2018, 2017, early 2018, I was helping her with her book, and she said, and she knew that I was wanting to start my own business. And I'd been doing some spiritual coaching and that sort of thing, which, is great. Like, it gives you good results, but it's fairly hard to market because you're like, oh, you're going to feel better. You're going to want to pursue your dreams. And people are like, that's sort of intangible. Right. So she knew that I was kind of going through that journey with starting my business. And she said, you should really help people with your books. You're really good at this. You love books and reading and writing and all of that stuff. You could help them. And she kind of came up with the idea, like, you're sort of like a book midwife. You're helping them bring forward their idea into the world. And so I was like, oh, I love that. So that was when I started it in 2018.
I love that. So are you kind of like an assistant ghostwriter with your people, or are
It
they doing the
depends.
writing and you're kind of
I'm
like,
the coach mostly. Yeah, they're doing the writing and I'm coaching them. Now, sometimes there are times when I will be more hands-on with it. It kind of depends on the situation. But mostly I find that I work with people who don't consider themselves writers. They don't really know how to do it, but they have this great idea. So they have some kind of passion or vocation or something, or a story of something that they went through, and they're like, I have an idea for a book. People keep telling me I should write a book. I keep getting these messages from the universe. It's time to write the book, but they don't know how to begin. So I help them from the start, set up and get connected with that triple self, right? So they can bring in the inspiration clear, and then learn to set up the writing habit that you need, an outline, and continue to be inspired, because a book is a big project. It's going to take you a while. And it's easy to say, oh, I'm so excited, I want to write a book, and then a couple of weeks later you're like, oh, this is a slog. Well, I help it not be such a slog.
so at what point did you recognize that you were a pagan priestess? When did that come into play?
That was in college, which for me was like the late 80s, early 90s. And I had been raised kind of agnostic. My parents weren't religious in any way, so I wasn't really part of any religion. And they were, kind of atheist, kind of, whatever. But my mom always talked about Mother Earth, and we were really interested in nature, and we loved, being outside. I grew up in the countryside, so I would go out as a kid and play in the woods. And so when I got into college, I got a little bit curious I took a course on Greek mythology in college, and I was a little curious about, what is the goddesses? That's real. And so I found out that there was a neo-pagan, movement, that people were living as pagans today. And I was like, oh, that's what we are. And went to my mom and was like, we're pagans. That's what we are. And so I started studying, reading, connecting with communities. And here in the state of Maine, in 2013, I believe it was, might have been earlier than that actually. And at some point in the 2000s, we started the law in Maine is that a body of clergy can ordain and create, license other clergy. So, oh, okay, so that's what we need. So we started a pagan body of clergy who then did licensing. And it was earlier. It was like 2001, because it was 2006 when I became licensed through that body of clergy. So I'm able to do weddings and that sort of thing, go visit people in hospice or hospital, that's by the licensure. But really, it's been a journey of discovering that I was called to this priestess work. And for me, like I said, it's very entwined with the creative work as well.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. There's so many different forms of creativity. Writing is just one modality, but like
Mhm.
when you see people being artists with paint, or even the woodworking lately, I've seen so much amazing woodwork and
Yeah,
crystal, like
cooking.
all there's so, yeah, there's
Yeah.
there's so much fantastic adventure there. And I always like to say everybody has a gift and a talent, and it's just about honoring like, I see the gift in you as you see the gift in me, and our
Mhm.
world would actually be very boring if we all had the same gift and talent, there wouldn't be, you know what I mean? It would be like a creative block that gets in the way of us shining our light differently. So, can you tell us some more about your transformational writing retreats? Like, is that mostly done online, or do you actually like sit in community together and do some pagan kinds of rituals to kind of ignite the fire? What does that look like?
I did my first in-person retreat in 2019 here in Maine in the summer for a week. We had this beautiful spot, and that went super well. And we did a lot of magic there, and yeah, it was amazing. And then we had the pandemic hit, so I was like, "Uh-oh, I can't do these." So I've started doing virtual quarterly retreats. So I do them 4 times a year virtually over Zoom, and it's a weekend. Usually it's Saturday, Sunday for people. But just this past year, 2022, I was able to again start having the in-person summer retreat. So that one is happening each July in Maine. And as it evolves, I'd like to add more of those in-person experiences too, because those are amazing. But I do the quarterly ones. And the great thing about that is I've had people from all over the US and even outside the US, other parts of the world come and join. So that's the cool thing about, they don't have to get on a plane. They can just come into the Zoom and join in with that.
So, do you see a difference between doing it virtual versus doing it one on more in a community space? I would say I would think the
Yeah.
community thing is more like landing it more into the physical from the spirit realm in a way.
Yeah, it does. It does. One thing that people really love about the virtual ones and meeting people from all over is we see the commonalities that we all have, right? People might be writing completely different. Somebody's writing a sci-fi novel, and then somebody's writing a how-to book on this particular thing that they know a lot about. But it doesn't matter. You see the commonalities of how we bring forth our creativity into the world. One thing that my signature thing that I offer in all of my offerings is guided meditations. And what those do is they help you get out of your talking self and into deep self, into that place of inner wisdom. And so I'm just guiding people inward and then giving them space to get whatever messages are for them or see whatever images or animals or whatever, is meant for them. And people love those. So that really anchors that magic into each person, is that you go within and you get your messages, and you come back and you make some notes for yourself, but also I give them opportunity to share with one another about what they saw or discovered. And it's so interesting. Sometimes, I do try to leave like things like, oh, okay, you're in the woods and an animal comes to you. Could be anything, right? An animal or a bird, but often we'll have like 2 or 3 people who all saw a deer. There's some commonality that comes in, and that's kind of the transformational piece, is realizing how connected we all are, really.
Yeah, absolutely. The oneness. We're
Yeah.
all a part of it, the fabric, right? Of the
Yeah.
universe and the earth plane all together.
Yeah. And then we can inspire each other, like the different writers, not just with like the actual writing that they're doing, but the magic. Like I said, oh, I saw a deer. Oh, I did too. Oh, what does that mean? Oh, so and so knows that, there's this meaning potentially. And, just sharing and inspiring each other is really great.
Yeah, and to know that you're not alone in the process or the journey as well. So do you predominantly like assist people to like birth their words, their book?
Yes, that's mostly what I do. I coach them through the process, having done it but 6 times now myself plus. So yeah, that's my main thing. I do some other work with certain clients. I'll do some editing or direct feedback or that sort of thing, but mostly I'm getting them ready to bring forth their books. And one of the things that's essential both in spirituality, this is another connection between spirituality and creativity, is regular practice. So, if you expect, you've never written a book before, you might have been a blogger or whatever, but you're like, okay, I'm writing a book. And you sit down and you just expect that it's going to just be, boom, I'll just write. It's easy. Well, there's more to it than that. It's cultivating a practice. It's cultivating what to do when you sit down and you don't feel like you have anything to say or you're blocked or whatever. There's different practices that you can do. And it's the same for spirituality, right? Like it's not just reading the books about it. It's actually putting things into practice in your life.
Absolutely. I always find that's pretty curious. You can read a book or you can like lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink kind of a thing. It's just
Mhm.
like that. And a lot of people I find, not a lot, I don't want to put a label, but it's more than book work. It's the action that you have to instigate or
Yeah.
initiate. to move forward. So which one of your books, how many books do you have? Like 5?
6 books, counting the one that's coming out very soon, which is The Elements of Creativity. And these are all nonfiction, but I'm also writing some fiction that I plan to release at some point too. So enjoying the process of writing them.
So was there one book that you've written that was more inspiring than another, or they kind of grow upon each other?
Um, I do have a favorite, and it's called The Heart of the Goddess. So the reason it's my favorite is because it's connected with a dear friend who passed away in 2013. And she died of cancer. She had a second round of cancer. She survived an initial cancer, and then a few years later got cancer again, and it spread throughout her body. And she had a very conscious and intentional death, and was very spiritual and wanted her community involved. And I was part of that. And it really touched me very deeply. And one of the people that also supported her was a polarity therapist. And so she would go and get sessions from this polarity therapist who would do like channeling and give information. And so after my friend passed, I went to this same polarity therapist and was told that my friend spirit connected through she was channeling her. She inspired me with this next book I was to write. And all I had was, she had said, the title is The Heart of the Goddess. Wow, what is that? And so through the process of actually figuring that out and writing the book, I learned to do some channeling myself, channeled writing. And so that's part of the book too. And it's just really special. I wrote about different aspects of life, connected with different goddesses. So for financial abundance or the financial realm, Lakshmi; for creativity, Bridget; just different connections with different goddesses who inspired me. And it was just really magical writing it because it was so connected with my friend.
So it sounds like she was actually speaking through you, maybe like a
Yeah,
co-spirit writer.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Oh, wow, that is so magical. So now you have how many more books coming out, you said?
Well, I have 5 that are out there in the world. The 6th one is about to come out. That's The Elements of Creativity. And then I'm writing a series of urban fantasy, kind of contemporary fantasy. And that's going to be either 3 or 4 books. I haven't decided yet. I prefer, after having done both publishing by a traditional publisher and self-publishing, I actually prefer self-publishing. And so the advice that I've been getting about that is, if you're writing a series, it's best to have it kind of complete before you start releasing those, because people are going to want to read, oh, we liked book 1, we want book 2, da, da, da. So I'm just kind of building those up and waiting to release them together.
So it's a series,
Yeah,
a collective series.
it's basically about, I was part of a contemporary vaudeville troupe several years ago. I played drums and we did skits, and there were belly dancers and fire spinners and so forth. And my brother, at the time when I was in this troupe, my brother said, "Oh, you should write a story about being in the troupe." And so I did. And it's about a troupe that's about to go on tour and go out and share their shows in the regional setting, when their leader disappears and goes missing right before the tour. And then it kind of goes from there. They have to figure out what happened to her and solve it. And there's some magic that comes into it. And
Oh, I love it. A little mini fantasy series.
yeah.
Absolutely. So it sounds like predominantly you assist yourself and others to be their own kind of creative word artist through the elemental realm.
Yes. Yes. And through spiritual practice, I want to talk about that a little bit,
Yeah, let's
because
dive in.
I've had people ask me before, like, what's the one thing that you really are like what's the best thing you've done for yourself, really? And so back when in college, and just after, when I was discovering, oh, there's a whole world of paganism, there's a lot of magic things to learn, I did just what we talked about earlier. I would read the book, and I would come to the part where it said, do these exercises, and I would put it away and not do them. And I kept kind of coming upon the same stumbling blocks in life. And I thought, oh, I've really got to just do this practice. So at the time, I wanted to learn more about the tarot and the tarot cards. So I decided, okay, each morning I'm going to start off and I'm going to draw a card and look at it, and then I'm going to learn about the meaning and do a little meditation, and I'll just see how it goes. So that was in 1997. And I've been doing some form of, it's changed over the years, but some form of daily spiritual practice in the morning ever since. And that's the best thing. I feel like that's the best thing I've done for myself, because it's allowed me to rely on that connection. I know each day I'm going to have a chance to connect with them and, access that oneness that we talked about, and allow creativity, magic, spirituality, allow it to flow in my life. And so practicing, each day doesn't mean, some people think, oh, well, then you've solved all your problems, then you're fine. Like, it doesn't mean it doesn't mean that you're not going to have challenges and struggles and things go on. It just means that you're going to be really deeply cultivating your tools that you have to deal with those things, and cultivating your awareness. So when I'm having a time where I'm having a problem and I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm worried about something, I'm kind of freaking out, then I have a part of me that says, wait, you're freaking out. Like, there's a little separation. There's an awareness, like, oh, this is that thing. Use your breathing tools, use your meditation, use, whatever your tools are. It almost doesn't matter what they are, as long as it's something that you're cultivating and practicing, so you can use them when you need them. And that really translates over to our creative work as well, no matter what again, it doesn't matter almost whether we're painters or musicians or writers or whatever. It just means that we cultivate the ability to persevere, to keep coming back to it, to be, okay, this, maybe I'm trying to write something and it really isn't working today. I'm going to maybe do something else. I'm going to draw or sketch, or I'm going to go for a walk. But just, bringing that awareness and perseverance to the table it's what served me best throughout my life.
Yeah, and patience. Sometimes I find people are in such a rush to like get her done and get her all done quick. And sometimes it's in that, I call it soliciting solitude. I actually have an online offering called Soliciting Solitude and different meditations in there. But often, it's like getting into that place of not just patience, but inner peace and different activations. Like, so for myself, when I'm when I'm having turbulence in the physical world, I'll either I'll pull a card for the
Mm-hmm.
day or the week, what I would call an energetic hiccup. I do my Cowry Shell Divinations, and that's a form of divination that I learned from Elder Melodoma Somé of the Dagara tribe. He's an African shaman who's left this realm and gone into the realm of the ancestors, but I still kind of call him in. But do you feel like connecting spiritually? Do you mostly feel like to do that like at a certain time? I feel like I'm kind of ping pong ball when it comes to that. Sometimes I like to like call it in before I go to bed so I can get like the dream space, or first thing in the morning, or maybe the afternoon. It just kind of depends on what's happening in my world. Is there a certain time where you feel it's more inspirationally connected for you in your spiritual practice?
Well, for me, I've cultivated that morning. And when I say morning, people think, oh, you get up really early with the sunrise. No, 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 I don't. My morning, when I get up, that's when I definitely do my practice. But what I'm finding over the years is that it seeps into other aspects of life. And then when you need to call on it, like you said, the evening feels really good to, like, before you go to sleep, set an intention and call something in. Or walking, like being in nature is a huge thing for me, like going out and walking. I live near, we have some woods where we can walk on the wooded trails, a short drive to the ocean, walk on the beach. And so that's a place where I can really connect deeply as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like nature is the best healing element that there is, like, because nature houses all the things and then even all the unseen out in nature. And collectively, I feel like our humanity needs to get back to nature, the
Yeah.
origins of nature.
I feel like we're doing that. Like, many people are being drawn and called to it,
Hmm.
in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Yeah, leaving the, I almost called it the program, leaving the program and the establishment and going back to our roots, the roots of our origin
Hmm.
through the elementals and reconnecting through there.
Yeah.
So, do you want to share anything else with my listeners, my audience today?
Well, I'd like to give you and any other listeners who do want to write my favorite writing tip. And it's based on that triple self that we talked about at the beginning. The biggest thing that slows people down and gives them problems with writing is trying to write and edit at the same time. So what does that mean? That means when you sit down to write something, you're trying to make it perfect on the first go. And what that does is that's kind of bringing in talking self. There is a place for talking self. Talking self is awesome at editing when it's time for that. But trying to do it while connecting with deep self and then bringing talking self in and saying, oh no, that comma doesn't go there. That's slowing down the flow. So I say embrace the messy draft, the messy first draft, and just let your creativity flow. Don't have any regard when you're writing for spelling or grammar or any of that stuff. Just let it flow as much as possible and set aside a separate time when you're going to edit it and make it pretty and make it sound perfect, quote, quote. I don't think it needs to be, ultimately perfect, but to make it, correct or grammatically correct. We were all taught really in school to write generically and to write so it sounds like everything, everybody else, or a textbook. And that's not what we want when we're writing something creative, because something generic is not going to call your people, right? Something that is full of your passion and your unique expression, that's going to call the readers that really are going to love it. So don't try and write and edit at the same time is my favorite tip.
Absolutely. Do you find, even on a side note, that it might be, I mean, I can see the pause point between having somebody else do the editing while you're doing the writing and then maybe reread together. I don't know. Sometimes the rereading, my mind gets in the way with rereading and then think, oh, maybe I should add this there or take that away, or, and then it kind of, you get in the loop of like the same space for way too long.
That's why I like to call, as people call it, self-publishing, but I like to call it independent publishing, because really you still need people to help you. You're not doing it all yourself, ideally. So yeah, having others edit your work and give you feedback on your work is incredibly helpful. I think we have been set up with this kind of image of writing as a lonely solo activity, and some of it is, but really community and support is vital to being a thriving artist rather than just struggling along. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because my first book I authored, I think it was 2008, or I think 2008. And it was a collaboration. Like, I scripted, it was like over 1,000-page manuscript. And by the time we were done, it was down to 300 pages because of all the extra words and the insights that happened for us. Absolutely. Well, that is beautiful. So, with all of that, if you would like to dive in and do your creative artistry with a book midwife, please get a hold of Nikki. I will have all her insights and information in the show notes. And as always, if this episode inspired you or you feel you could share it with one of your magical, mystical friends, just take a screenshot of you tuning in on your device, tagging at the Tonya D to your Instagram stories. And to keep this momentum flowing, the Musing with Tonya D podcast, the link to donate to this show if you're feeling it in your heart. And again, as always, I will see you on the other side. Ashe, ashe, ashe. Blessings.